G'day, Nick here, Animal Engineering. On this episode, we are going to get all of this goodness onto the chassis and then get the body of the van on the chassis. So I'm pretty excited for this one. Finally get the body on the chassis, see how low this chassis is actually going to go with the air suspension. It's going to be interesting at the moment. If you've been following along, the chassis is quite high off the ground. I don't really know why. I think it's literally just the body weight of the donor car, because when the shocks and springs were in the donor car, it was sitting a hell of a lot lower than what this chassis is. So I don't really know what to expect on how low it's gonna go. As far as the air suspension kit I've gone with is a Airlift Performance kit. It is made for the donor car, which is a VE Commodore. So we'll have a quick look at the kit and then we'll start putting it all together. So I've been through and unboxed everything and sort of got it laid out on the table just to get a bit of a mental idea of how it's all going to go together. The instructions are pretty good. So that's the front shock. So that has a height adjustment at the bottom here. You can screw this up or down. Now in the manual it says that I need to have 10mm clearance from this flange to the tyre. So I think to start with, when I put these in, I'll get a measurement of the factory one from, say, the sway bar pickup point there to where the factory shock is. I'll set these at that and then we'll put it in and see what it's like. These are the rear shocks. These don't have the same adjustment at the bottom there. I was looking at this thinking maybe you can screw it. I went online and had a look. So these are a Ride Tech Firestone shock. And the only adjustment here in the manual, you see on this mounting point there, there's two holes. So bottom hole, top hole. Top hole is for show mode, as they say. So I'm pretty much just going to go show mode because I want it to be low. So we'll see how that pans out. There is a bit of room under there, so if I can get adjustment on the front to get it lower, I may end up remaking this top bracket and raising some of these holes up even higher. We'll see how we go. You see, there's a reasonable amount of clearance under there, so we can raise that up in theory. Hopefully we don't have to. So as far as the kit goes, I upgraded to a dual compressor system. So I also upgraded to these sensors, which I think makes it like a height-based system as opposed to a pressure-based system. So I'm not going to put these on just yet. They're sort of plastic and I really don't want to mess them up. I mean, this chassis is going to come in and out like plenty of times. So I'm not going to put them in until pretty much probably the final assembly of the van. I'll chuck these in. Yeah, I just don't want to risk breaking them. So we'll put them in a safe spot. So as far as the wiring and everything goes, everything's like sheathed really nicely. It's all labelled. So all the wires that aren't terminated, you're probably not going to be able to see it, but there's writing on there which clearly says where it's got to go to, what it is. So that makes life pretty easy. So it's got the control module there. It's a pretty heavy bit of kit, that thing. Must be good. And then basically that's your installation manual. A lot of this is based on the height sensors, pretty much the whole back half really. But that's what you get in the middle, your sexy centerfold. So that's just that's pretty much all you need really. Just that one page. Seems very easy. So I think first things first, we'll get the chassis jacked up, we'll get the wheels off, and we'll go through, put all the 4 shocks in, and then we'll look at mounting the tank and compressors and wiring it all up. Alright, well there's a little bit of mucking around trying to work out how to put that in there, but it has gone up a hell of a lot further than I was expecting, to be honest. I've ran out of stroke on my trolley jack, and I think there's still a bit of compression left in that airbag. Now it has uncovered a pretty disappointing flaw in the chassis, which is not an easy fix at all. It's gonna mean a lot of chopping, but it's why you go through all this stuff before it goes back, you know, to the engineer to sign off. You need to make sure everything's perfect. So point in him signing off and then bringing it back and doing this and finding out you've got to change it and then take it all the way back and get him to sign off on it again. You see here this bracket that comes around to support the shock. See there. So that airbag is crashing hard. So I'm pretty much just going to chop that bottom section of that bracket off for now. And then we'll go ahead and do the same on the other side, just chop it off before I put the bag in. And then once we've had it in the van and lined everything up, then when we get it back out, I've still got to do all those other little touch-ups before it goes to the engineer. So I'm going to have to redesign that, cut it off, which is a pain because it's fully welded. One of those things of designing custom stuff, I suppose, isn't it? Not everything goes to plan, especially if you've never done it before. So anyway, I'll chop that out and we'll get the other shock on the other side, and then we'll have a look at it on the front. But how far that's going up is a good sign so far. That is disappointing though, I must say. Alright, well I've chopped that piece off and we have clearance now for it to go up and down without eating itself. That broke my soul, I tell you. Anyway. We'll get the other side done and then we'll cut back when I'm doing the front, which there is no custom chassis to bolt the shock to, so there should not be any issues with that. Alright, well that's both rear airbags in. I wasn't going to put the wheels on until I'd done the whole lot, but after having to cut that stuff out and destroyed my soul. So I was wanting to get the wheels on just to have a look at it and a little bit of a pick me up. Now I've just got it jacked up here now, and I can tell you right now it's going to go lower than I thought it was going to go. It's not quite going to touch the ground, which is fine. You can sort of see how high the van is off the ground at the moment. Looking back at photos, it's about, I think you go a little bit lower than that before I have to do any major frame modifications inside the van. So I think it's probably going to work out pretty good. But we'll find out, obviously. But yeah, you can sort of see the bottom of the frame there, bottom of the wheel. Yeah, pretty happy with that. Alrighty, well that is the front shocks are in. I've just done a quick up and down, and I think that I could probably screw them up even further, like to shorten things up. But I'm going to leave it until we get it on the ground and air it out and do all that sort of stuff, because I only really want to do it once. I don't want to be piss farting around. So now it's the time to wire it all up and plumb it. So just been through and thread taped everything. I don't think I've mentioned yet, but I'm not doing a full final install. This is just a mock-up install. Try and get my head around the wiring and everything, and also just making sure everything is going to have clearance and the chassis actually fits under the van, which it should. I've measured it plenty of times, but as we've discovered with this rear shock situation, things don't always go to plan. So, got a battery, just been down to Auto 1 in Bidvale, Legends down there. Got a couple of battery terminals and an on-off switch. So we'll bash out this wiring. I'm just going to do the old twitch and tape for now, just get it working. And looking at the centerfold in the book there, it doesn't seem like too much of a mission, so we'll bash it out. And then we should be able to go psh, psh. So one thing that comes in the kit is this plastic tubing which goes to all the shocks. I'm not going to run this with the final install. I'm going to run like stainless tubing. I guess if you're on a factory car they tell you to just zip tie. Yes, if you're on a factory car they tell you to zip tie this to your brake lines or fuel lines going under the car, but for what we're doing today it will work. But yeah, in the future this will be going in the bin. Alrighty, well that's everything wired up. I ended up using like little crimp fittings. Couldn't bring myself to do the old twitch and tape. It's still not an ideal way of doing it, but it's better than doing the twitch and tape method. So that didn't really take very long at all. That probably maybe half an hour. Everything's pretty self-explanatory. The instructions are really good. So you got this branch off here. So these four go to the height sensors, which we'll do at a later stage. It's got this pink wire, which is for an ignition on. So I think that's like a signal wire, so nothing's activated until you've turned the key on. So just wired in an on-off switch on that at the moment. So that's basically acting as my key. So I think I've got that right. So now it's just a matter of running the airlines out to all four corners, which they're just like push-in fittings, so that should only take about 10 minutes. So we're pretty close to firing this thing up and seeing what happens. See how low it goes. The plan is to air it up and then I'll get it off the jack stands, and then I'll just go down slowly, make sure nothing's going to interfere and clash and do anything stupid. But for now, we'll carry on and run some of this rubbish out and we'll connect everything up. Alrighty, well that is everything wired up, plumbed up, ready to go. I'm just going to have another quick read of the manual, have a coffee. I haven't got any fuses in there or anything yet, so nothing is live. But yeah, just going to have another read through the manual, make sure I haven't missed anything, make sure, you know, when I've got to start it up, something has to be off or whatever. So we'll cut back once I've had a read and we'll chuck some fuses in, and then hopefully I guess the air compressors will go, charge up the tank, and then should be able to get the controller and Alright, well I've had a read up, had a coffee, and I am pretty confident I should be able to chuck these fuses in and nothing should explode in my face. So just reading through. So basically that's the installation guide, which I've been through and done, and then we've got this one here, which is, so this is the remote control thingy you got here. You can get an app on your phone as well, so you can stand way back and have fun. So there's a bit of calibration that has to be done, but I think to start off with I should be able to put the fuses in and everything should air up. So we'll see what happens. Nothing from that fuse. Right, so that's both the air compressor fuses on, so they're like a full circuit now. So now I've got this pink one, which I think is like a trigger one to signal everything. From there, we'll turn the key on. That scared the shit out of me. Alright, well, my thread tape is not working at all. I'm pretty confident that where I have everything at the moment is where it's gonna be when I'm actually gonna install it for the final time. So I'm gonna have to pull everything out, use the proper goo, and then put it all back together. Alrighty, well, we've got that proper Loctite sealant on there now. It's been on there about half an hour. I went on the Loctite website and it reckons with brass fittings, which are what are on here, it's about a 40-minute to an hour sort of initial cure. So also reading through the manual, I think it has to be on the ground, because when you do your calibration it cycles up and down and stuff, which I don't think will work up in the air, because there won't really be any pressure on the bag. Which, kind of a good thing, we get to see what it looks like on the ground. Psh. It's not going to make any psh, psh, exciting noises, but we'll see what it looks like and how low it goes. Alrighty then. So you can see the front is still off the ground, the back, that is on the ground. So that's in that top show mode hole. So you can see on the front shocks, so there's a bit of room there, so I'm going to pull them off and I'm going to adjust them up a little bit, and then that'll get the front down a bit lower. And then I'm probably going to move that rear shock to just the normal hole. See how much of a difference that actually makes. It's only like that much difference in the actual hole, but I'm not really too sure once you sort of go out to the outer limits of the control arms and everything. As that sits at the moment, I'm going to put some titanium blocks or something under the back of the chassis and get some mad white sparks at night time. So yeah, as you can see, she is on the ground. So yeah, I'll pull the front shocks off, I'll adjust them up a little bit, and then we'll cut back and see how much of a difference it makes. Alright, well that's brought the front a bit lower. Looking at the van, where the front is, that's pretty much where I need the whole thing without doing any major mods to the actual inside frame of the van, which I do not want to do. So obviously bringing the front down has actually lifted the back off, so it's not actually touching the ground now. You can tap it a little bit and it hits the ground. But I think the show mode, I don't think I'll ever use that hole. So I think I'll adjust that to the normal hole, and then hopefully that should bring it all nice and level. Must say, I am amazed that it dropped that far. Well, that was over, before with the other shocks in it, there was just over 8 inches off the ground, and now the arse end is touching. Bit of a spin out. So just going to leave it for a little bit longer, let that sealant cure before we air her up again, and then we can do the calibration process and start going. Righto, it is the next morning. All that sealant should have had enough time to seal up on the threads. Now, I've probably gone a little low in the front. There's not really much clearance from the tyres to the shock, so that will have to come up a little bit. And what really is just a surprising turn of events is I've put the rear shocks on the bottom hole. And that's brought it up off the ground a little bit. I guess beauty of this airbag system is you can set like your low pressure, or once I get the height sensors in the low height position, so you can set the ride height or the absolute low to what you want. Because I believe at the moment it's too low without doing major mods to the van. So at the moment, it's got like this, I think they call it like a Schrader valve, same we have on like push bike tyres, car tyres, that sort of stuff. That's coming off the bottom of the tank. So I'm just going to use the air compressor, the big air compressor here, to pressurise the system, just so these pumps aren't running flat out and draining the battery. So get it all pressured up, we'll do a bit of a leak test, and then we'll have a look at calibrating it. Alright, so now it's a little control panel here. It's just going through doing the calibration, so it's just asked if the car's on a level surface. Went yes. Front wheel straight, yes. Are all wheels free of obstructions? Yes. Is your manifold mounted? I'm going to say yes. Do I have one or two compressors? Two. Enable or disable stance guard. I'm just going to leave that off for now. Height sensors, not yet. Oh, vehicle will now move. Are you ready? Oh, don't know what's going to happen here. I think it's going to go up and down maybe. Yes. Alright, well, I'm not too sure if I've done that correctly, to be perfectly honest. It says the system is ready to use. Alrighty, well that seems to be going up and down pretty good. It goes down to about the height I think I need for the van, all the way up. We're 6 inches off the ground, which should be pretty spot on I think for being able to steer and stuff. And then if you jump on the front, well, that's pretty firm, so we should be able to throw this thing into a corner and whip on the old handbrake and throw it around a bit, which is pretty good. I don't think we have too much to the old body roll situation going on. Alrighty, well the time has come to get the chassis under the van. I'm going to lift the van up. I was going to do the same dual lift technique I done last time. Terrified the shit out of me last time. It's going to scare the crap out of me again. So the old wife's working from home today, so I might actually pull her into the shed to give me a hand. Last time I was bouncing between the two, and if you don't go up even, it nearly fell off the hoist last time. It was absolutely terrifying. So I might go inside and see if I can get her to come out, and then we'll lift this body up. Rightio, well that hasn't gone too bad really. There's a couple of disappointing bits, most notably the ends there on that front wing bit that comes out. It was like just too wide, like it was so close, but it had to come off, just so I could roll the chassis far enough forward in the van so I could get the wheels centered. Now at the moment I think that's still at full height, which is still slightly too low, but I have the sills there are sitting straight on the chassis, so they will have a packer under them, but even still I don't know that it's going to be enough. So things are fitting in there pretty good though. Like the radiator, there's just enough clearance for the radiator. I will have to lift it up. The front looks a bit funky. Always knew the front was a little bit higher, but I didn't sort of realise it was that much higher, and that big step up there is sort of accentuated now, but once we get a bumper on there that won't be so bad. So I'm just going to hook the battery back up. I want to go up, see if we get any uplift, and then we'll slowly come down and see if we're going to clash on anything at all. See how far we get the back before it hits that frame inside. Kind of hard to express how excited I am about that, to be honest. I think I've wanted an airbagged car since I was like 8, 12 years old, something like that. Seeing this just go psh, psh. Looks so good. So one thing I have decided is see the tyres hitting there on both sides as I sort of predicted it would, but we're sitting nice and low. These rails here, they need to get packed up for the body, so I'm just going to go. So I'm going to go ahead now. I was going to make up some 1-inch spacer blocks, lift the body up an inch, and then hopefully that inch will give me enough room that I'll be able to steer the front wheels. So I'll go ahead and do that. That may even give me enough clearance for the frame. I don't think it's going to, but we'll have a look and we'll cut back in a second. Alrighty, well I went backwards and forwards. I put 1-inch blocks under it to start with. I still didn't have enough clearance and I was happy. So I've actually gone to 2 inches. That's fully aired up, I can get my fingers in there. Got the old steering column out of the MX-5. That's under the Porsche now. So just got that tacked in there. Got a pair of vice grips because I don't have a steering wheel, but I feel that should be fine. That should be plenty of clearance. So might tidy up the steering column a little bit better. We might roll it outside, I think. Have a look out in the sun. Psh, psh. Alright, well, it's the next morning. I left it last night aired up, and I came out, she's still aired up, which is a good sign. Kind of irrelevant because it's all got to get pulled apart anyway, but never mind. So I've just been through and welded those two end bits back on, trimmed them up a little bit and got them all welded and blended back on. I was going to leave it for later on Nick, but later on Nick has already got a lot of unfinished bits and pieces. So lift up on the hoist and we'll have a look underneath. It looks pretty cool. There, you can see. You can see if those all welded on, blended back in again. Looking good. Alrighty, well I think we'll leave it there for this episode. Pretty excited, chassis under the van. There was a couple little issues along the way but nothing too major. Things we can sort out pretty easy. We're going to spend the next day or two just fluffing around with the height of the body. I do have to adjust those front shocks, get the gap bigger, so that's going to raise the chassis up a little bit. Might change things around with the body as well. And then I think along the bottom there where you can see the chassis, I may end up having to chop the whole bottom of the van off and extend it down. See how we go. I'll sort of plan on, see here I've got a few colour samples of what I plan on doing, like the rims and the chassis in, and I feel if I don't extend the bottom of the van and you're just going to have like the solid new colour there, it's going to look a bit funny. I don't mind the wheels obviously being nice and colourful, but I think seeing that strip underneath the van will look pretty crap. So yeah, I'll fluff around with the body, see what I can do there. Still got to make sure I've got room to steer the wheels obviously, so that's a bit of a limiting factor. I could potentially drop down a size in the front and do like a staggered rim size, not too sure. As it stands at the moment, I think I'm going to have to get a different offset for the front wheels, because when it airs down it is rubbing on the body. So I think if I maybe push the wheel 10mm in, I think I'll clearance on the shock for that. So I think on the next episode I might address this front situation. Look at getting a bumper on there and seeing, obviously you've got that big void there, which I have sort of had in the back of my mind that I may have to actually make a piece up and fill that, but I'm going to get a bumper on there and see what it looks like. Hopefully with the bumper on there it won't be noticeable and it'll be less work for this guy. Yeah, anyway, that is a big step forward. The body is with the chassis, it's not obviously attached, but it's with the chassis. It's all fitting and looking bloody brilliant. So, as always, if you've made it to this far through the episode, Thank you very, very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.